Hello and welcome to my book report on Antinet Zettelkasten by Scott P. Scheper. I have been meaning to review this book for quite some time. Actually, if you're new to my channel is all about fountain pens and inks and hobby-related stuff. But I also like to review books when they really grab a hold of me, and this one has. I finished reading it, I think, in September. And I've been in and out of it quite a lot since then. So here I am. I've got some notes because I've got so much to say. I'm afraid it's going to get jumbled up. But let's just get started with what I've written down, because it's been a while since I've done a book report too. But this book was published in 2022. And I was trying to kind of figure out what genre to call it. And I think that it might be communications theory or cybernetics, the science of communications, but that would be something that probably would differ from person to person. I have a feeling it might get lumped into knowledge systems when it may not completely. That would be maybe short-sighted, but I don't know. So where did I get this, or where did I hear about the book? Where did I get it? My pen friend SB sent it to me. Thank you very much. I think she just knew that I'd resonate with these ideas, and I certainly do. So I like to have a goal or a reason for reading a book. It kind of keeps me focused. And so my goal with this one was to figure out whether I would want to create my own notebook system. That's what Zettelkasten stands for, and we'll get into what the Antinet part stands for first. As we go along. But I wanted to figure out whether this would actually, oh my cat's trying to get in his little tent. Let me help him. There, Coco has burrowed himself into the blanket that's on the easy chair next to where I'm sitting. And it makes him a little tent. It's kind of cold here right now in South Texas. So, yeah, I wanted to figure out whether this system would work for me, whether it would fit in with my goals or projects or whatever. And so that was my mindset as I started reading. Now, what I think I'll do is what I normally do with nonfiction books. I'll break down about 5 points that I took as the main points from the book. And it was really hard with this one to narrow it down to 5 points. And understand that I'm a beginner with this. So I don't think that I'm going to be perfect. And I also think that I still have quite a bit to learn. And then I'll talk about things I liked and didn't like. I'll also talk about my results, like what I decided after reading it, or so far anyway. And then I'll talk about who I think might like the book. And I even have a tip as far as strategy on reading this book. So stay tuned for that. So, but before we get started on the main points, it is 593 pages. So it's a chunky book. It's really nice. But I like a real book. I don't really want an ebook. I don't learn that way. I had to use sort of a little knee pillow up on my stomach because I like to lay down and read on the couch. And that worked because I just anchored it on there. And it was better in the middle half, the middle part. But anyway, and I also have this fixed real nice where I've got parts about the index, the bibliography, the main cards, the 3-box system. And then up here I've got a how-to. That must have been a section I really go back to a lot. So I've got it kind of tabbed, and I don't mind the size and the weight. It doesn't bother me too bad. Also, the book has really nice illustrations, so that helps. There's drawings. I think that the author's wife did the drawings. And there's also photographs, really enough to give you a lot of extra help, understanding the concepts. So, yeah, it's soft cover, and I believe it's super well organized, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, as far as the 5 main points, this system, Antinet Zettelkasten, originates from a German scholar, Niklas Luhmann, who was a prolific writer in Germany. And so he wrote many books. I can't even remember, it was I think 70 or something. And so it interests me right away to think that this worked for him, and that was in the back of my mind. And it also worked for the author of this book. he used his Zettelkasten to then end up writing the book. I mean, he totally shifted over from a different trajectory to do this book, which I think is just really amazing. It means that it was of that much importance and interest to him. So anyway, number 2, or the next main point, the system is analog. I mean, it's not a computer system. Now, that doesn't mean that that you don't do some cards that tabulate and reference digital references. That doesn't mean that at all. It just means that it's all on index cards. It's all handwritten, and it's your system is an actual, well, mine is here, and we'll look at this a little bit more at the end, but or my beginnings of it, and there's more of a story there, but okay, so and then let's see. Yeah, I got my writing is a little bit jumbled on these as far as keeping them separate. Not digital, but there are digital Zettelkastens, so you could get down a rabbit hole and get a little bit, sidetracked and get a little confused. I did at first, because I was like, oh, okay, I thought maybe that was a computer thing, and it is, a certain niche of it is, but this is a very specific method or way of doing it. So number 3 is that this method that Scott writes about, it's a communication experience. It's a thinking system. Okay, it's not just a place to put all the information, like your notes that you take. It's way beyond that. It's not an info storage container. In other words, you end up, linking concepts and working things out and becoming a really good thinker. In fact, it started to happen to me just working with one of the 3 main parts of the Zettelkasten, and that is the bibliography cards. So, I mean, that was pretty amazing. And so I kind of got a little tiny taste of the power of it. Okay, so then number 4 I put, and keep in mind, these are the things that stood out the most to me, are that, it has a distinct advantage over digital, because we do tend to keep and save and collect a lot more information when it is on our computer, on files on the computer. So he calls it like there's no bloat when you're doing it handwritten, because you are not going to, you're going to get to the point. You're going to get to the main points, and you may reference other things, but it's not going to be such an overwhelming amount of information as what we have in our digital files and folders. Just about any of us, I think, could agree that our computers get, loaded with stuff. Let's see. You work harder, but you learn to think and connect concepts easier when you're doing it by hand. I mean, I think that would just be natural. It's like if you're taking notes instead of typing notes, you're not going to write down every single word the professor said, but you are going to get right to the heart of it, if you become good at note taking, which hopefully you do. So, and then number 5, I wrote down the goal, and this is all from his book. This is what he said, and this is what stood out the most to me. He said, you reproduce the thoughts you have, making it easier to create written products. And that's kind of the niche that he's appealing to, is people who want to write books or produce content or scripts, things like that. At least that's what I gathered, and it's probably much broader than that, but that would I think be his ideal, or Scott's ideal client, unless I'm mistaken. Okay, so then, now that brings us kind of to the liked and didn't like column of things. This just helps get me focused, because otherwise it would literally be an hour long, and it would be, you might as well read the book, I guess. So what I liked is the compelling and interesting writing style. I can read his writing very easily, and it's not easy subject matter, but his writing and the way he's organized it works with my brain. And I was looking at it, and I really kind of think that because he uses good subtitles and has it truly marked, I really think that helps too. Let's see, let me get into one where it's a little bit more involved or whatever. yeah, like when we're talking about stem links and branch links and remote links, it's all nicely subtitled with a, with a broad typeface, and that helps too. But that wouldn't make any difference if the writing wasn't so smooth and interesting. And he has a very conversational style. I feel like he's talking to me. And he does have a YouTube channel, and with quite a bit of content on it, so you might check that out. And also on the front of the book, there's a quote by one of his students, Kathleen Spracklin, and her YouTube channel has been very helpful to me. It seems like even though maybe our projects and our content creation is different, I really related to her, and so I will link both of those channels for you in case you're interested. Excuse me. Okay, so now where was I? Okay, number 3 of the likes. I prefer analog, and this system is really amazing. It is. I've always loved index cards anyway, and so it just sort of was natural that I was going to try it. At least try it, And well, we'll get to my particular issues and my experience in a little bit. It has number 4. It has a great table of contents. I can go back in the front and I can find what I'm looking for very easily. It's not just chapter numbers, it tells you what is Antinet, analog, numeric, alpha, tree. It goes into the specifics underneath the chapter 1, chapter 2. And I do like that. I like a really good, in fact, a good table of contents will make the difference whether I read a book to begin with or not. I always look at that first. With me, it's if I can't figure out what I'm going to get from the table of contents, then I sometimes don't read a book. Okay, and then the other thing I liked was the 4 principles of Antinet, which are number 1, the A stands for analog, and then the next one, the N, is numeric alpha note card addresses. And then T is for tree or branching of ideas. And then I is for index. So that kind of, it simplifies it. And if I write that on a little card or whatever and keep it, then I keep the ideas in my mind. So, I always like to have those acronyms or whatever you call them. So, okay, so moving over to the maybe I didn't like as much category. And there wasn't that much. But the first thing I wrote down, it's hard to explain, and it may be just weird, but I did write, maybe it seems like more information than needed. Okay, so it is a really deep dive. It is really deep and detailed. But if this, for someone who ends up wanting to do this, it's totally satisfying. Completely comprehensive. Nothing is left out that I can imagine, because every question I had became answered before the end of the book, which is just amazing. So I don't see how come I put it there, but I did. I put it that maybe it was a little overwhelming, but that is particular to me because, I've got so many things going on, right? Then the second one was a little bit more, I kept looking because I thought it had an index. And I still feel like there's no index. It feels like there's an index, but there isn't, right? Let me just look. He's got some appendix listings. Okay, so no, there's not an index. I don't know that there needs to be one because, like I said, the table of contents is very good. It hones right in on things, and it was easy for me to tab those main things, the index, bibliography, and main cards, the 3-box system. Let's see why I tabbed that. It was how to build it. So there were some illustrations there, so I did tab that too. And, in other words, it was very simple for me to get back to where I needed to get to and where I think I'll reference more, and I have referenced more. So maybe it doesn't need an index. Maybe the index would take up so much space that it would make the book even bigger and heavier. So there is that. And then the third thing I wrote down is sort of like not really relating to the book, but when you buy the book, I didn't buy the book, but I did sign up for the emails and things. And there is a lot of advertising that the writer does. But, that's optional. You can get off of mailing lists. You don't have to stay on them. And actually, the emails I get from the author are compelling enough that I don't want to leave the email list. So even though maybe I felt a lot of wishing that I could afford his written newsletter. You know, it's not a digital newsletter. It's an actual mailed out real printed newsletter, which, wow, that's a unicorn in these days, right? So, but it was out of my budget. And so maybe that's just like, it's very specific to me, like where, oh man, you know, I'm just not on that lane right now. That's all. Maybe I will be one day. Okay, so then the next question, if you're familiar with other of my book reviews, I always say keeper or not. If so, you know, why not? And also, okay, so I said, yes, this is definitely a keeper book for me. For one thing, he goes into so many other books that relate to the subject that I think it's such a reference. It's like a main reference or beginning. I mean, even though it's not beginner material in my mind, it shoots off into different directions. And there were several other books that I might want to check out sometime. But by the time I finished, I realized that you were getting the comparison sort of essays about how this system compares to what is talked about in other different books. So in a way, I never did go to the library and go ahead down the rest of that rabbit hole. I felt like I'd got a lot of information, and that's complimentary. That's really something for me because, like, well, you know me, I'll go after, if I haven't yet learned everything I want to, I'll just keep going and keep going. Okay, so my result as far as like where I'm at right now with this. So the biggest thing that has impacted me so far that I'm still doing is keeping bibliography cards on each nonfiction book that I write, where, you know, I write the information about the book and where I got it from, my purpose for reading. I did a little stamper on that I started when I started reading it. And then, you know, keeping notes, page number and some notes. And I stapled these together. I got a little carried away, but you know, it was my first doing a bibliography card, so I ended up with 4 or 5, but that's okay. I understood it by the time I got to the end. They should have been some main cards or whatever. They should have been that way, but I'm really happy that I did that with this book especially, because I've got what I wrote down in my first read through there all lined out. So I'm still doing bibliography cards on other books, and I've kept that. Now my intention was to use this one that I created, and this is just a Tupperware modular piece. Let's see, it's got a number on the bottom. Is it number 2? Anyway, I'll try to link it up so it, you know, it might be something you have in your kitchen. That's what happened to me. I was storing something in one, and I thought, I'm not going to go buy a bunch of stuff. I'm going to see how I do. And so you have your index, your bibliography. My bibliography's back here, right here in the alpha, and then I got the numbers all set up that I would use for my main cards, and then the index. So, but it didn't take off with me yet, and I have not disassembled this because I'm not actually giving up on it. I think that what he says somewhere in the book is that he recommends you have a project in mind in order to create this, and then your subjects start to, you know, branch together, and your thinking starts to get better, and yeah, it's let's see. Yeah, we talked about that just a little bit, but it's really interesting to me, and I want to do it. I just haven't committed the time, and I haven't focused. Like, if I was going to write a book, a nonfiction book, there's no way I would approach it any other way after reading his book and understanding how to work with the system just enough and being able to go back in and reference. I would definitely do it this way, because I saw how much I was retaining as I was reading too, just of the book, by beginning to think in the terms that he talks about in the book. So just amazing. Okay, so I promised I'd give you a strategy on reading this book. And this is just my personal opinion, but I think you should pick it up and read it from the very beginning all the way through with an open mind. And I don't think it's the kind of book that you'll get as much from if you skip around. I don't know whether he mentions that or not, but that's my impression after I finished. I'm always one for wanting to go dig right in, get to the meat of it, and just pull it out, you know. And so that's you know. But let's see. Author's note. I'm just going to look real quick because I'm not sure if he cautions you to read it that way or not. I don't think so. No, I guess not. Preface, do not skip. Maybe he does, because there is quite a bit of preface here, and then the history and the goal of the book. Yeah, well, I'll read you the goal of the book. I thought that was cool. The goal of this book is both simple and complex. My goal is to help people who are committed to growth and learning to create genius-level work. I hope the genius-level work created lasts for 200 years or more. The reason any piece of work might last for 200 years or more is related to the contribution it makes to other people. Yeah, then he says, that's my why. So it's a book that I am very, very grateful that I have and that I read. And I have this feeling that, you know, should I live long enough and not croak, then I will be working with this more. And I definitely kind of am, because I'm doing those bibliography cards the way he mentioned. And, you know, I'm not trying to, like, say that the system's not for me, because I don't really feel that way. I just feel like maybe I'm not at that point right now with a project that would, you know, kind of be enough incentive to develop the cards, you know, more, and to be working with it. I'm disappointed in myself, though, that I'm not there, you know, in a way. But then again, I'm juggling many hats right now, many projects and things like that. So I will just try to let go of any self picking on myself about it, or trying to put pressure on myself, because it's a wonderful system and I like it, and very, very much. I've got index cards and I've got everything there. And yeah, I think with at a different time, and maybe not so far from now, I could really use it, benefit from it. I've benefited just from reading the book and from using the making the bibliography cards. So I hope this is helpful to you if you were thinking about getting the book. I'm not actually sure how much the book cost. It's you know, there's a landing page, and it's like you pay for postage or whatever. I want to say it's maybe under $20, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I didn't order it. I just was the happy recipient of this book. And it's something like that, though. So let's see. It used to be available on Amazon, and I don't know, that could change. Maybe it is again. But at the time that I got it, I know that it wasn't there, because I was going to actually tell my friend I'm going to order it from Amazon, but it didn't turn out that it was there. It used to be. So, okay. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten anything, because I think that's what held me up for so long. It's such a comprehensive and well done book that to come and do a book report, I felt like, yeah, I would be like a kindergartner doing a book report on something, you know, that belongs in 8th grade. And so I did feel that way. I felt like, can I do the book justice? Hopefully you'll now know whether you might want to look into it or not, you know. And if you do the research online, it will be helpful for you if you want to do analog, if you want to do something similar to this. It's really helpful if you look up Niklas Luhmann and kind of make sure that what you're looking at is that type of Zettelkasten, so that you will you know, find that analog type information. And there's so much out there. There's just so much. And that's not to say any of it is wrong. There's something that fits everybody, I think. So it's interesting. And but I felt like learning Scott studied this massive card system file made by Niklas Luhmann, and it was a long-term project for him to do that. And so we're getting the benefit of his studying all of that. And then the proof, of him, learning it is in this book. So, and I read somewhere, I can't remember exactly where, probably in the book somewhere, that he also deals with ADHD. And so that really kind of, and I do too, and was diagnosed at age 40. So that's, a flag that says, oh, this might help you, because if someone else who also deals with that type of a brain, can do so well with it, then maybe I can too. So, okay, I think that's about it for it. But what I will do, I'll upload the video, and I'll give you as many links as I can to try to help you be able to find whatever we talked about here. So thank you very much for watching. I know my book reviews are like probably my least viewed, but I get really excited about books, so I really like to do these. And it was a cold day, so we're trapped inside, and I thought, why not? It's overdue time to make the book report. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.